Here we go. I will soon get to Shedeur versus Dillon Gabriel and Kelsey Plum versus Caitlin Clark, and why I fear Ashton Jeanty might not last that long, why he's more Zeke than Emmett. And finally, I'll get to me versus myself over today's Cowboys and today's Philadelphia Eagles. But first up on today's Skip Bayless Show, brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. I'm here to tell you, I have now watched all 8 episodes of an advanced copy of the Dallas Cowboys documentary that will explode onto Netflix on Tuesday. And I am here to tell you, it is full of bombshells. It's about the impossible rise and the shocking fall of the 1990s Dallas Cowboys dynasty, or at least what should have been the dynasty. 3 out of 4 Super Bowls should have been 5 out of 5. This doc is about Jimmy Johnson versus Jerry Jones, about Jimmy Johnson versus Troy Aikman, about Troy Aikman versus Barry Switzer, all mind-blowing. But this documentary actually turns into more of a Michael Irvin confessional. As my guy, Michael Irvin, a man I worked with on television from Best Damn Sports Show to Undisputed, my guy, Michael Irvin, comes shockingly clean about the house that the players kept about 2 blocks from the Cowboys practice field called the White House. Michael Irvin as president. The White House featuring different drugs and different women in every room. Michael goes into detail. And he also details that night that Michael got busted for drugs in a Dallas motel room. And about how he avoided jail time, even though the prosecution had him dead to rights. Wait until you get an eyeful of that. And about how, while on probation for that, Michael got mad at a new teammate and stabbed him in the neck with scissors, nearly killed him, and again avoided jail time when that same judge who was interviewed for the documentary again let Michael off because Michael somehow convinced that judge that the stabbing was just an accident during some horseplay. Whew. This documentary is called America's Team, the Gambler and His Cowboys, and it is sensationally done. Some people will hail it as a masterpiece. Whether you love or hate this football team, and have for many years, you will be riveted by this. As I've said before, I wrote 3 books about that period, that dynastic period that came out in 1990, 1993, 1996. So I was interviewed for about 6 hours for this doc by McLean and Chapman Way and by Adam Goldberg. Those are the 3 driving forces behind this doc. And yeah, I'm in it quite a bit. Now, I'll be the first to admit to you, I look terrible in the documentary. My lighting was brutal. I don't think I look that bad, do I? Maybe I do. But what I say in the documentary is dead on, as were all 3 of my books, for which I received many, many death threats when each first came out. All 3 of my books broke stories that Cowboy Nation just did not want to hear because fans were completely unaware of what was really going on in all 3 cases. So all 3 of my books were often dismissed as yellow journalism, sensationalism without facts. Nope. I gave you nothing but facts about untold true stories. Absolute cold, hard facts. And these stories just leap off the screen in this Netflix doc. If nothing else, from my point of view, this doc does validate and vindicate all three of my books: God's Coach, The Boys, and Hellbent, especially Hellbent. But in some cases, yeah, I'll tell you the truth. Punches were pulled in this documentary here and there. I know Jerry had veto power. I'm not sure if he exercised it. I'll try to figure this out. But I am prepared in some cases to tell you the stories behind these stories. Stories I think you'll be astonished and astounded by once you've seen all 8 episodes. So I'm going to wait a week or so. Then I will unleash. I will welcome and respond to your questions and your comments. Because no one in this documentary has a broader feel for the real objective truth than I do. Now, you might think it's very arrogant and presumptuous for me to say that, but look, I really believe I was the only one involved, and I was deeply involved, who had any real sort of step back objectivity over what was swirling around me. I was way, way, way inside all of the above. And I will soon take you way inside what really happened behind the scenes of the most interesting team ever there was in any sport. Please show me some other Yankee team, or I don't know, the 85 Bears. Show me another team that can compete with this one for off the field headlines, because you can't. You just can't. I mean, what owner fires a head coach after he's won back-to-back Super Bowls? Wait, Jimmy Johnson wanted to trade Michael Irvin when he first got to Dallas? And Jimmy, for about 3 years, thought Troy Aikman was a loser? Wait, Jerry Jones replaced Jimmy Johnson with a Barry Switzer who'd been out of coaching for 5 years and who had never coached a single down in the NFL as an assistant or a head coach? Troy Aikman tried to get Barry Switzer fired during the 1995 season, after which the Cowboys actually won their final Super Bowl in spite of themselves. I was in the middle of that. And what about the racial incident that ended all communication between Aikman and Switzer for the last couple of months of that 95 season? Whew! Oh, the stories I can tell and will tell after you've had a chance to watch this documentary. By the way, on Tuesday, August 26th, it's FanDuel Futures Day, a new holiday for football fans. It's 24 hours of deals on all your football season predictions. So take a flyer on the MVP race. I'm going to take a flyer on Jaden Daniels. I think the Commanders will get McLaurin signed, just like the Cowboys will get Micah signed. Commanders added Debo and Tunsil. This offense will be the NFL's most explosive. I'm going Jaden Daniels MVP, slightly over Josh and Lamar and Saquon. So mark your calendars. This is your day for your hunches, your hot takes, your calls, and your odds. Visit FanDuel.com/ my first name, SKIP. That's FanDuel.com/ SKIP, Skip, to join today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Okay, Now, allow me to buckle my seatbelt here for a second and jump back into the present and respond to two Jerry Jones quotes in the final episode of this Netflix doc that's dropping on Tuesday. And for the record, these aren't really spoiler alerts. You should just watch them in context. In episode 8, it's called Jerry's World. And it's about what has, and more important, what hasn't happened to Jerry's Cowboys in the 30 years since they won that last long ago, far away Super Bowl. I mean, come on. They haven't even been back to an NFC Championship game in 30 years? What? They've only made the playoffs 13 times in the last 30 years with Jerry owning and operating this team as its general manager? I say fire the general manager. Oh, wait, you can't. He's the owner. The Netflix crew was there in Jerry's box at the last Cowboys playoff game 2 years ago, you'll remember or try to forget, against Green Bay. Yeah, you remember. The Cowboys were the 2 seed. This is 2 years ago. A 7-point favorite at home over the Packers, who, by the way, were the youngest team in the playoffs that year. And before the game, the Netflix crew interviewed Jerry and his wife Jean and his daughter Charlotte and son Steven. And they all basically said, this is our year. Finally, happy days are about to be here again. Finally. That was their attitude before that game. They were on fire with optimism because this was it. And the Cowboys, my Dallas Cowboys, with Netflix rolling close up on Jerry's stunned face throughout the game, suffered what I still call the most humiliating home loss in playoff history in any sport. Show me a worse one than this, given the circumstance. The Dallas Cowboys, 2 seeds, 7-point favorites, were down 27-0 at home before halftime. And afterward in the locker room, Netflix captured Jerry consoling Micah Parsons at Micah's locker. Jerry telling him, as bad as that was, it wasn't your fault. What? My wife, Ernestine, was watching the documentary with me, and I turned to Ernestine and I immediately said, that really pisses me off. She was too caught up in feeling sorry for Jerry at that moment. She thought he was coming across as just pathetic and lost, which was true. Though as a lifelong diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, I obviously don't have an ounce of sympathy for the mess Jerry Jones has made of the team I love with all my heart and soul. But there in the documentary, right before my crying, dying eyes, was exactly what has been wrong with Jerry Jones' Dallas Cowboys for the last 30 years. Think about this. Jerry was consoling and absolving the best player on a defense that just gave up 27 points before halftime of a home playoff game. No, Jerry, no. Jerry Jones was coddling Micah Parsons like he was a grandson, taking him off the hook, failing to hold him accountable, giving Micah Parsons an off-season excuse to keep doing podcasts and playing in celebrity basketball games without an ounce of shame or guilt. Do I have to remind you, as the documentary will, that back in 1992, after a loss in Washington, Jimmy Johnson told the flight attendants on the team plane going back to Dallas not to serve dinner to the players because they did not deserve to eat dinner. That's why several players in this documentary called Jimmy an asshole. But that team was scared to death of Jimmy Johnson, who motivated by psycho fear. The Cowboys have missed asshole Jimmy ever since that Jerry fired Jimmy for being an asshole to Jerry. That's what happened. Jimmy an asshole? Yeah, he's a real asshole. Trust me. I know he once banned me from the facility for the second book that I wrote. I'll get into that story soon. So Jerry Jones now presides over a Dallas Cowboys country club in which no player is afraid of anything other than maybe what some Skip Bayless might say. Criticism their followers will instantly reject as just crazy lies. The Cowboys have no more bad cop. In that Green Bay game, Micah Parsons registered the worst stats of any game in his career, of any game. Jerry says, it's not your fault. What? The next day, after that game, I honestly had to check to see if Micah Parsons got hurt in the game, and I missed it because I couldn't remember Micah playing in that game, home playoff game. That was the same Micah who had only 2.5 sacks in that season's final 7 regular season games. The same Micah who had no-showed in 2 previous playoff games against the 49ers, at 49ers, home against 49ers. Remember those? I can't remember Micah playing in those. And it wasn't your fault, Micah? Give me a break, Jerry. Because you sure gave Micah a break. Look, I have again and again and again made the point that Micah hasn't wrecked any games since his rookie year. It took the league a year to figure him out, and since then, for 3 more years, he hasn't wrecked any games that I can remember. Since Micah's entered this league, he's 5th in sacks, and he's 5th in quarterback hits. Yet you watch, Jerry Jones will soon make Micah Parsons the highest paid defensive player in NFL history and be proud of it, because that's what Jerry does with his grandsons. Micah Parsons is yet another in a long line of overhyped and overpaid Dallas Cowboys stars. Put quotes around stars. I mean, Jerry said the other day, as I pointed out, that back in March, Jerry offered Micah almost $200 guaranteed million. That's more guaranteed money than all but 6 NFL quarterbacks. Way more guaranteed money than Myles Garrett or TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, any of those stud rushers who are all a little better than Micah. Micah should have just shaken on it, but he said, no, Jerry. He wanted his agent to do the negotiating. Oh, well. Jerry will keep himself in the national spotlight as that penny-pitching villain who won't pay poor Micah what he deserves. Jerry will do that. He'll milk it for all it's worth, all the publicity. He'll drain the last drop until the week before the season opener, when he will, right on schedule, absurdly overpay Micah Parsons, and they'll hug and they'll laugh, and I will cry, because there's no way Micah Parsons can live up to that kind of money. He just doesn't consistently have that kind of impact, that kind of historical impact. But it's not your fault, Micah. It's Jerry's. Which brings me finally to a line that Jerry spits out near the end of the documentary, final episode, when he's asked if he'll ever hire a GM. And Jerry says, I don't like it like that. Then through gritted teeth, Jerry concludes, I like the pain. I like the pain. Look, no figure in sports history has been criticized more than Gerald Wayne Jones. None. You can't find anyone. I dare you to find somebody who's taken more criticism over more years. What's it now? 36 years. No, it's more than that. 36. That's right. 36 years. Who's in sports? Who has taken that kind of duration of criticism? I mean, Jerry, I was there. He was barbecued by the media as this Jethro Jones, this hick from the Arkansas Sticks when he first bought the Cowboys and he fired Tom Landry. Jerry Jones was roasted when the Cowboys went 1-15 their first season. Jerry Jones was drawn and publicly quartered for the Herschel Walker trade. Jerry Jones was annihilated, absolutely shining sea annihilated for firing Jimmy Johnson. And now he's been by far the biggest and easiest target in sports for the last 30 years. And he loves it. He loves it because the criticism keeps him in the international spotlight, keeps him extremely relevant at age 82. Who can do that? The criticism keeps Jerry alive. His team, the most valuable team in all the world, now valued at almost $13 billion, only keeps growing in value year after year after year. Loss after loss after loss. Nobody is turning the station on this soap opera. So in the end, this documentary, unfortunately, is a monument to Jerry Jones. As pathetic as he has looked for the last 30 years. Jerry prides himself on having the thickest skin ever in the history of sports. But the truth is, Jerry's really not feeling any pain. Jerry's actually an ecstatic masochist because he's the happiest ever masochist. He has 3 Super Bowl trophies in his office. He won the 3rd without Jimmy. The Jimmy he still despises, you'll see. So the point here is that in the end, Jerry's just having the time of his life. His is the most recognizable face in all the NFL. It's not the pain that Jerry likes. It's the attention. Even if it's relentlessly negative, it's all the relentless attention that he keeps getting and getting and getting. He's an ecstatic masochist. No. The only ones feeling the pain are we, the fans. We don't like the pain, Jerry, but we are stuck with you, and we are stuck with the pain. By the way, ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for, that needle in the haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's 4 out of 5 in the first day. Try it for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/skip, SKIP, my first name. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/skip. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Okay. One final word on the Cowboys, but this time on the 2025 Dallas Cowboys. Look, I realize they haven't been playing many of their starters. I think they played 7 of 22 the other night against Baltimore at Dallas. And I'm trying so hard this year not to be a doom and gloomer. I'm really trying so hard to like, maybe even love this team. But now I've watched 2 preseason games. I watched every last snap of them as Ernestine yelled at me, "You're not finished yet?" No, I got to watch Will Grier play the fourth quarter. Ugh. Okay, but even as I watch 2s versus 2s, second string versus second string, or 3s versus 3s, the Cowboys are just getting dominated by the Rams and the Ravens. So last week I read in Sports Illustrated, they ranked the Cowboys running back core as the worst in the NFL. And I couldn't even get mad about it because, yeah, probably so. So the other night against Baltimore, and Baltimore is the best against the run, even the backups. But we ran it 20 times for a grand total of 51 yards. 20 for 51, that's 2.6 a crack. Javonte Williams didn't play. Miles Sanders did. I've always kind of liked him. But in the end, he's just a guy. Maffa, the rookie. Jaden Blue hasn't played. He's got an ankle issue. I watched Jaden Blue a lot at Texas. He's a luxury back, third down specialist. Get him in space with a little flip pass. He can fly, but between the tackles, he can't be an every down back. Deuce Vaughn, I loved him at Kansas State, and he just hasn't flashed. He flashed a couple of years ago in the preseason, but he just hasn't been enough, just too little. So we have the worst running game in the league, and then I have to watch my quote-unquote backup quarterback up against my former backup quarterback in Cooper Rush, now a Baltimore Raven. What a great move it was by them to sign him. And he's just consistently completing passes. I know he threw the one pick six. But Cooper Rush is really good. He's the best backup in the league, and Jerry should have paid a little more to keep him. But no, he's got to save his pennies for Micah to be the most overpaid defensive lineman ever, defensive player ever. So, again and again now I've had to watch Joe Milton try to prove he can be the backup quarterback because the Cowboys traded for him, so they're going to give him every last chance to win the backup job. And I've seen 3 quarters and 3 quarters of Joe Milton, and I'm here to tell you, he just can't play quarterback. Struggled at Michigan, struggled at Tennessee, struggled as a Patriot till the last game when no starters played on either side against Buffalo, and he had a nice game, and that convinced the Cowboys. It was a virtual, like preseason kind of game for the last regular season game. He accidentally won it and cost the Patriots Travis Hunter. That's what happened. Say it ain't so, Joe. Because, Joe, I'm sorry. I just can't see it, Joe. You weren't born with that thing, that feel for playing the hardest position in sports, that poise, that command. I just don't see it. I loved Will Grier at West Virginia, but he's just bounced around, never gotten his shot. Sometimes you're just never in the right place at the right time, so they keep throwing Will Grier into the ultimate garbage time of the fourth quarter of a preseason game, and I don't know how to evaluate him. His first pass the other night was really good. I think he's a little better feel for the position than Joe Milton. But this is what it's come to for the Cowboys. Boy, Dak better stay upright. And is Dak ever in his all-time career best comfort zone? Because he knows nobody's going to be screaming for Joe Milton to replace him when he struggles. And hopefully for once he won't struggle. Joe Milton did throw one nice ball because he's a big young man with a huge arm. He threw one nice deep ball that Jonathan Mingo came down with. And I guess it was on that play, Jonathan Mingo, I guess, tore up his knee. That's the report. I don't know. What else can go wrong? Meanwhile, I keep watching the Eagles that I picked to win it all last year preseason, and they did. And I'm watching their first 2 draft picks light it up. Andrew Makuba, pick 6 on Dillon Gabriel. And it just looks like as a late second-round pick, he's going to be a star. He'll step right in for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who I've always loved, who was such a difference maker wherever he's been, but for the Eagles last year. And I thought they were going to miss him, but maybe they'll miss him a little, but not a lot, with this kid stepping right in. And then I'm watching Jihad Campbell fly off the edge with such explosive ferocity. Late first-round pick, and they stole him from Alabama. And Howie Roseman strikes again. Then they go get John Mechie in a trade to beef up their receiver room, and I don't know what to tell you. They have Howie Roseman. We're stuck with Jerry Jones, and it just keeps going like this, just like this. I'm trying to at least like Brian Schottenheimer, but as much enthusiasm as he seems to bring with his cap on backwards, as much upbeat talk as he talks to the media, I just don't see any new pep in the step of this football team. I don't see anything new. Usually a new coach, new culture, you start to see new energy in the team. I don't see it at all. I know the starters haven't really played, but I just don't see it team-wide. So Mike is going to wind up practicing twice before the opener, and he won't be in shape, and he'll be, knocking on wood here, he'll be at risk, obviously, of pulling something early in the season. I love Donovan Ezeruwaka, second-round pick, and he played the other night. I kept looking for a flash. I didn't get a flash. I still want to love him. I still love George Pickens. I love what CD said in his sideline interview the other night on the Cowboys telecast, that Dak's connection with George Pickens has been underrated, said CD. Underrated. Well, not here. Not by me. I think he's going to change life. I do. Change CD's life, change Dak's life. He's the best deep threat in the NFL with a chip on his shoulder pads to show Mike Tomlin just how wrong he was, to say more trouble than worth, too immature, too much of a hothead, and chip on shoulder to show Jerry Jones in his final year of his deal that he's worth a new long-term deal, playing for a contract. So, come on, Shoddy. At least play some of your starters for a quarter against Atlanta. Let everybody, let them and us feel a little better about what we're seeing, because so far it's just looking like the gap, the Grand Canyon style gap between Dallas and Philadelphia just gets grander and grander and wider and bigger. And it's just horrifying to me. But I'm hanging in. All right. Speaking of doom and gloom, it has just torn me apart that Shedeur Sanders, on the doorstep of doing something revolutionary, pulled an oblique muscle and couldn't go Saturday in the Browns' second preseason game, which allowed Dillon Gabriel to take over the stage as the other rookie quarterback who was taken 50 slots above Shedeur. 50 slots. Because nobody in Cleveland wanted Shedeur except for the owner, Jimmy Haslam, who stepped in and said, that's enough, take him. Jimmy Haslam wanted the buzz, the publicity. It was, for him, sort of a publicity stunt. And yet Shedeur stepped in the first preseason game when everybody else got hurt. And he lit it up, and he showed you why, to me, he should have been the first overall pick in the draft, why Cleveland got the ultimate steal, why Jimmy Haslam should put his foot down and tell Kevin Stefanski, Shedeur Sanders will start on opening day against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cleveland. That's what I said last week, and then Shedeur pulls his oblique. And Dillon Gabriel played. Look, I watched Dillon Gabriel every snap that he took at my school that I grew up loving, the University of Oklahoma. Went to Vanderbilt, grew up loving OU. Watched Dillon Gabriel play at a very high level for 2 years. He's a little better Tua. That's who he is. Same sort of body type, lefty. Decent arm. Can move a little bit. Tough kid. Does compete hard. And he looked really good for the most part. He did throw a pick six to Makuba, but he played very well because I expected him to play very well. Then after his stint, he's on the sideline, gets interviewed by the local Cleveland TV broadcasters and their sideline reporter. And he's asked about tuning out the noise, and Dillon Gabriel said, yeah, it's just part of it. You know, there's entertainers and there's competitors, and I totally understand that, but my job is to compete, and that's what I'm focused on doing, said Dillon Gabriel on the sideline, just a few feet away from Shedeur Sanders. And of course, the internet leaped to the conclusion that he was dismissing Shedeur as an entertainer and making himself a competitor. And I immediately did not believe that that's what he meant. So after the game, Dillon Gabriel further explained, and I'll quote him, he said, yeah, first off, I'm all about our team and each other. I would never make that kind of comment about a teammate in Shedeur. And I've said it before, that's why it's interesting. But for me, I've explained it. Entertainers are you all, meaning the media. Competitor, that's what I am. And all my teammates, and we both have jobs to do. So that's it. So he's trying to say, I said what I've said before, that the media is all about entertainment, but I'm about competing. In this case, competing for a job. I'm going to buy that. I don't think it was a shot at Shedeur as an entertainer, as some social media type star who can't play, who doesn't compete. Because I think Dillon Gabriel's been around Shedeur long enough to know, as Dillon stood on the sidelines watching Shedeur in that opener of the preseason, I'm going to say it again. Shedeur Sanders is the ultimate competitor. Is he an entertainer on social? Yep, he is. Who isn't in this day and age who plays sports? Everybody. LeBron James, ultimate entertainer on social media. But I've tried to explain, Shedeur Sanders is as mentally and physically tough a quarterback as I ever watched in college football. He took hellacious, unholy beatings his 2 years at Colorado. And he just kept jumping back up and throwing another completion, led the nation in completion percentage because he's deadly accurate. He has a Brady-esque arm, definitely above average, throws great deep balls, clutch toughness, third and long, look out. He's going to throw a beautiful ball under fire. I mean, yeah, he was raised rich by a daddy who had a whole lot of money, but he was raised tough. So I couldn't even get my mind to go there because Dillon Gabriel's a good kid. He is. He's not going to dismiss Shedeur as an entertainer because that's not where his mind goes. That's not how it works. And that's not remotely who Shedeur is. And if he did mean that, if it was aimed at Shedeur and not at the media, as we're the entertainers, he's the competitor, then boy, is Dillon Gabriel ever dead wrong about that. Because Shedeur's both. He can be an entertainer on social, and he is the ultimate competitor. Even more of a competitor to me than Dillon Gabriel. Okay. A word of caution amid the elation experienced by Raiders fans watching Saturday night's breakout performance by Ashton Jeanty, who looked like he was trying to break some 49ers bones on his 7 carries for 33 yards. Yep. Ashton ran angry. Ashton Jeanty looked like the ultimate warrior running into and over 49ers right and left. And I'm sorry, but I'm just here to caution. This young man just won't last that long in this league, at this level, trying to run over any and everyone who gets in his way. It just won't last. So here's my comparison for you. Remember, Ashton Jeanty but he played high school football in Frisco, Texas, very close to the Star, the Cowboys headquarters. So he knows about Cowboy history. So Ashton Jeanty stands 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighs 208. Not a huge man. Emmitt Smith was right there in that size and height range. Emmitt was maybe an inch taller at 5'9", maybe slightly heavier. I thought Emmitt played around 210. He was listed later in his career at 215-ish. But still, he's Ashton Jeanty sized. Then there was Ezekiel Elliott, who blasted onto the NFL scene, as you'll recall, in 2016. Zeke stands 6 feet tall, weighs 228-ish, 230-ish, maybe by the end 235-ish. Here's the point. Ashton runs a whole lot more like the way Zeke ran. And what happened to Zeke, who took on all comers, who looked to run over linebackers? Remember that first flash in that preseason game at Seattle when Tony Romo got hurt and Dak stepped in permanently? Was what, the third preseason game at Seattle? And Zeke was headhunting that Seahawks defense. He was headhunting Cam. He was looking for trouble, and he was going to cause trouble for trouble in the secondary. He was looking to make statements by running over people. And then what happened to Zeke? He led the league in rushing yards per game his first year and his second and third, but each year of his career, he lasted, 9 years, although the last 2 were as a backup. Each year of his career, his yards rushing per game dropped. Each year. Why was that? It's because you have only so many of those collisions in your body. And Zeke, who didn't stay in the best of shape, used up most of his collisions in the first 3 years. Then, of course, he holds out in Cabo. Jerry pays or overpays and makes him the highest paid running back in the game. And he never was able to live up to the deal that Jerry gave him 3 years in. Now, Emmitt Smith, I covered him all the way. I know him inside and out. Nobody has even remotely run for as many yards as Emmitt wound up running. He broke the record in Dallas, then played 2 more years, which he shouldn't have, in Arizona as a Cardinal, and he piled up more and more yards on that total that just looks unbreakable. I know no record's unbreakable, but it looks right now unbreakable. The difference between Emmett, who is Jeanty sized, and Jeanty is that Emmett was the ultimate escape artist. Emmett avoided collisions at all costs. As Norv Turner, the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, used to tell me, Emmett has the greatest quickness in a confined space that Norv had ever seen. Quickness in a confined space. That ability, that subtle juke of ability, that subtle quickness to make you miss in the hole, make you miss. Cowboys' elephantine offensive lineman, just beastly offensive line through the 90s. Emmett could duck and dart at 5'9". Behind it, you couldn't find him until he got loose in the secondary. And you couldn't get the hit on him. Defenders used to talk about they never could draw a bead on Emmett. He was just too shifty. He avoided the quote-unquote kill shot. He never, in all those years, he played 15 years, I never saw him take a shot where I said, oh. He did bang his shoulder into the turf at New York in that final regular season game in 93, the great Emmitt Smith game, Warrior mode. I'll give you the backstory of that in a soon-to-be-released episode. But other than that, I used to call him Emmy Smith because he would fall to the bottom of a pile and he'd sort of drag himself out and kind of limp back to the huddle. No. Then all of a sudden he's 8 yards, 15 yards, 12 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards. He could set you up. He could DQ. He could sandbag you, and then he could run through you, not over you, around you and through you. You just couldn't get a hold of him, couldn't get a shot on him. Emmett was classic at just, when the play's over, just run out of bounds. Don't try to bull for any more yards. Don't put your head down and try to fight for an extra 8 or 10 inches. No, just give it up, live to play another play. Run out of bounds. At Arizona in those last 2 years, he was just running out of bounds like crazy. If it's not there, just run out of bounds. Save yourself. Protect yourself. 15 years he lasted. Never, ever tried to run over anybody, even at the goal line. He's going to try to he's going to try to wiggle underneath. He's going to try to get leverage on. He played strong, but he never took linebackers on the way I saw Ashton Jeanty try to make a statement the other night. I remember in his first preseason game, Jeanty had, 3 carries for -1 yard. So he wanted to say, watch this. Fine. But it didn't count, Ashton. Didn't count at all on your career log. You're going to have to run much smarter if you want to last longer than Zeke did, because Zeke's career was really a 3-year career at best. At best. And if Ashton Jeanty keeps running the way he ran against the 49ers on Saturday night, his career will be short-lived. So I know Kelsey Plum a little bit, gotten to know her a little bit. I like her. Great player. So now she's saying on Sue Bird's podcast that what she said about Caitlin Clark and her team the night of the All-Star game, after the All-Star game, was just a quote-unquote a really bad joke. And I've tried to give her a pass on this because the shot that she did take as she sat next to Sabrina, who was on Caitlin's team, in the post-game interview, the shot had the word very in it, which was revealing to me that she said that Caitlin and company, Caitlin's team, wasn't very present at that morning's meeting in which they decided to wear the T-shirts that were going to unify them against the league in seeking more money. You remember the T-shirts. So when you say somebody's not very present, that means to me, my interpretation is, well, they were there, but they were there only in body, not in mind and spirit. They were just there to barely be there, but they weren't really there, if you know what I mean. But it didn't mean that they avoided the meeting or they didn't want to participate in the meeting. They weren't very present indicated to me that they did show up, but not in spirit. So then Kelsey goes on to explain that she was just bad joking about how hungover they were. Yet she also said that her team's nickname was Team Hungover. So wait a second. So Kelsey's saying that both teams on the morning of the All-Star game showed up for a meeting hungover. That's what she's saying that she was trying to bad joke about. Man, that's not a great message to all those new fans out there wearing 22 jerseys, is it? But I must say, when I saw Kelsey say it live, what she said about not being very present, it just came across like it was a triumphantly angry shot at Caitlin Clark. That's how it came across. It felt mean-spirited. And I thought that maybe she threw in the word very because she was trying to water it down just a little bit, make it a little more palatable for people, that she threw in at the last second the word very present when she meant they just weren't present at all, that they did not participate in the meeting, and that she was basically holding Caitlin accountable for that because obviously there's the league and then there's Caitlin. Like, she's above all that. She makes so much off the court that she doesn't need to participate in a rallying cry meeting about T-shirts to be worn to try to force the league to give everybody the more money that they all deserve. And as I tweeted at that moment when I saw the T-shirts, well, they all deserve it because of Caitlin Clark, her presence alone. I just thought it was a shot at Caitlin, and my deepest instinct right here, right now, is that it was still in the heat of the moment. Kelsey had a big game. Team had a big dominating game over Caitlin's, that she was just spilling over with pride and taking a shot at Caitlin and company. And remember, Kelsey, back in 2017, she was the first overall pick. And obviously she's also white, as is Caitlin. And I'm sure there's part of her all along who said, what am I, chopped liver here? Here comes Caitlin. And it's like there was no WNBA before Caitlin arrived. And she's saying, well, I arrived in 2017 and I've been pretty great. What about me? So that brings me to Caitlin. She's been gone for a month now with a pulled groin. I don't know what's going on. Ratings are obviously tailing off without Caitlin. I'll watch the Fever occasionally just because I got into the Fever last year. Kelsey Mitchell was sensational the other day as they came back against Connecticut from 21 down. I love watching Aaliyah Boston post up. All of her, she's the big fundamental. She's sort of the Tim Duncan of WNBA basketball. But I don't watch them like I used to. I used to not miss a dribble when Caitlin was playing. Now with 9 games to go, it's just starting to feel like she's not going to come back this year because, man, clock is ticking. 3 of those 9 are against the runaway best team, Minnesota. I don't know. She was in an awful slump when she pulled her groin. Maybe she is also just tired of the resentment and the jealousy, the shots taken at her, the attempted bullying on the court and sort of off the court. Maybe she's just sick and tired of all that. And so maybe part of her has been thinking, well, let's see how you do without me. because she knows what's going to happen. They won't do very well without her. They won't be very present without her, if I may. I can't speak for Kelsey Plum, so I don't know exactly what's going on in her heart of hearts, but I know what's going on in mine. Do I ever miss watching Caitlin Clark play basketball? Period. End of story. That's it for this episode. Thanks to Tyler Korn for producing, to Ernestine for overseeing, and to Hazel for approving.